Welcome to the Nutritional Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Kyla Chanel. I'm a performance nutritionist specializing in sex differences in sport. I work with athletes from all over the world through my online private practice and sports nutrition programs. We here at Nutritional Revolution are here to cut through the BS promoted in the media and give you the science, literally straight from the research articles, as well as share client success stories and experiences around nutrition and racing. Please keep in mind, this podcast is created strictly for educational purposes only and should never be used as a replacement for medical diagnosis and treatment. If you like what you hear today, we would love for you to subscribe and share. Welcome back, everybody, to the Nutritional Revolution podcast. It's Kyla here, and today we have for you guys Manuela Villaseca, and she is one of the most accomplished trail and ultra runners in the world with a long, diverse history in sport, competing since 2011. With 2 top 10 finishes at the Super Bowl of ultra running, the Ultra Trail Mont Blanc, and a top 10 Ultra Trail World Tour ranking, multiple wins, course records, and podium finishes, as well as most recently crushing the record for the Triple Crown of 200s in 2025. She's truly one of the most versatile athletes in the sport. Born and raised at sea level in Brazil, Manu has a unique ability to compete with training at altitude, separating her from others in the front of the pack. She attributes this ability to her multidisciplinary training, which includes trail running, cycling, and yoga. Manu's lifetime of experience has helped her become fluent in English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Catalan. She is a United Endurance Sports Coaching Academy certified coach with Peak Run Performance Coaching Team, where she works with athletes from all over the world in multiple languages, and she is also a certified personal trainer and yoga instructor. She enjoys sharing what she has learned through her own running journey and finds immense value in sharing her training philosophies, multi-sport approach, and means of maintaining a positive mindset with her athletes. This was such a fun episode. I learned some new fueling techniques for on the trail from Manu in this episode that I found to be very smart ideas. So listen up and find out what those are. Enjoy. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the pod. We have for you guys Manu Vilaseca. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. So happy to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. We were talking before we hit record. She's in Spain right now, and it is like 9 p.m.
Yep.
Yeah, and I was like, that's past my bedtime, but she's like, not here.
Not here. Definitely.
Yeah. Well, definitely appreciate you joining us, so late in the day for you. So our listeners heard a little bit about you in your intro. So we're going to dive straight into your 2 truths and a lie. So I'm going to have you break those down for me. I'm going to type them away here as you go.
Okay, so let's go. Number
Yeah.
1, I ran my first marathon when I was 19 years old.
Okay.
Number 2, I won the lottery on April Fool's Day. Number 3, I'm a vegan.
Okay. Interesting. These are good. Lottery on April Fool's Day. That is an interesting scenario. Yes. I feel like that might be true though. I'm trying to think about that. For some reason though, I'm thinking the first marathon was not when you were 19. I'm going to go with that as a lie, but don't tell me the answer. We're going to find out if she's a vegan or not. Yeah. Amazing. Okay. So definitely what caught our eye and why we definitely wanted to have you on here was you just crushed the record for the Triple Crown 200 series. And for our listeners that don't know what that is, can you explain what that is? And I'd also love for you to explain for reference how close these races are together.
Yeah, I think that's the most interesting part about it. So it consists of 3 races in the US. The first one is Tahoe 200. It happens in June. Then you have Bigfoot 200, and it happens in August. And the last one is Moab 240, and it happens in October. So the interesting fact is that from the first to the last, there are only 4 months.
Oh,
that's the crazy part about this challenge.
Yeah. Goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And for our listeners with the recent record breaking, can you share with us what you achieved and how much did you shave off the prior record?
Yeah. So the my time was like 201 hours, and I
Mm.
think it was like 29 hours or something like
Wow.
that, less than the last record,
Wow.
which to me is like, it's something that honestly I never thought it was possible. I went into that motivated by fear,
Mm.
by the fact that I didn't think I could make it. That
Wow.
was what intrigued me and what made me want to do it.
Mhm.
I think I love challenges, and usually I go for challenges in which I doubt myself, you know? And I think it's not that I doubted that I could run 200 miles or 240 miles, because I had run Cocodona, so I had proved to myself that I had the ability to
Yeah.
finish a race that long. But I thought that it was, like, basically impossible to run 3 races like that in 4 months and not get injured. So,
Yeah.
I think the huge challenge there was, like, how do you recover in order not to be injured?
Yeah. That's a
Yeah,
great question. That
yeah,
is a great question.
yeah.
So, without maybe revealing any of your truths or lies, what got you into endurance sports and how did that progress to something like 2025 where you're doing 3 essentially back-to-back 200-mile trail races?
Yeah, so I've been in this sport for a long time. My
Mm.
first ultra was 2011. My first trail race was in 2011
Okay.
in December,
Wow.
and it was 100 miles. It was my
Oh my
first.
gosh.
Yeah, but that happened because, and I'll explain, I don't advise that, but my background, I come from adventure racing,
Oh, cool.
and I
Yeah.
was doing like really long races. They lasted like a week.
Wow.
So for me, 100 miles was just a part of what I was doing. So
Yeah.
that's why, like, it was so simplified in my head, and
Mhm.
I thought, like, I know it's a huge challenge because adventure racing you're doing with a team, there's like, you're changing sports, you have kayak, you have mountain biking, you're climbing, and you're doing so many things, and that's like kind of a reset on your head
Mhm.
in your head. But then when you're running 100 miles, it's just like, it's just running. And
Yeah.
it makes me, even though it's shorter, it makes it more difficult in a way, because it's like you're working in a way that is not gonna change too much. Because I
Mhm.
I say, like, if I'm running and then I sit on a kayak, I'm just, like, working different muscle groups, and
Right.
it's like I start everything again, and then I hop on the bike, and then it's like a different work again, and
Yeah.
you have that kind of reset both physically and mentally. But then,
Wow.
running is just running.
Yeah.
So that was the challenge for me. It was like, am I able to run that far?
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. Have you been in on any of the TV shows where they're doing like the adventure racing stuff?
No, actually, like, maybe I did, like, this Eco Motion, which was in
Mm.
Brazil, and
Mhm.
I think it was, like, they had something, but not, I know that they had Eco Challenge, which was, like, in Fiji, and there's a story
Mhm.
around that with an athlete. They made, like, a documentary or a
Oh,
video.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, because they're quite interesting, like, this
Yeah.
kind of race. Yeah, yeah,
That is well, that's fascinating too to think about that and coming from that in a fueling lens and then to something like running
yeah.
like consistently like you're saying for 200 miles. So, yeah, I mean, did your fueling and hydration routine or tactics change from the something like kayaking, climbing, running, like to strictly running?
So you're gonna laugh now, because it's like when we were doing adventure races, it's 4 people in a team, right?
Mm.
So when you pack, and then it's the same thing as if you're running 200 miles, for example. You go to the supermarket and you buy everything that you feel that you're gonna eat,
Yeah.
when in fact it all goes down when you start the race, and suddenly you don't want to eat any of that, right?
Yeah.
Because it feels really good before the race, but once you're racing, it's like your appetite or something changes, that
Yeah.
suddenly is like, this should feel really good, and it
Mhm.
doesn't. Like, for example,
Sure.
the bars,
Mhm.
bars, you can eat a bar like as a snack and it's delicious, but not
Mhm.
in a race.
Yeah.
So, the interesting thing is that in adventure racing, because we were 4 people in a team, each one packed their own food, and we exchanged because always the other person's food was better than mine. So it's like,
Interesting.
oh, you have this chocolate. It's like, oh, this is delicious. And then
Yeah.
we traded because everything they had was better than the other, you know?
Oh my
And then
goodness.
when I was racing on my own, it's like, okay, I have packed all of this and I don't
Yeah.
want to eat any of this.
Yeah.
And actually my first race, it was self-supported. So I what I remember taking like a huge pack because that
Mhm.
was 2011. It wasn't like nowadays that
Yeah.
people are going with minimal, and it wasn't like that. And
Mhm.
I remember like finishing the race and my pack was full of food because I carried
Wow.
so much food and I ended up not eating a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah. Goodness. So with something like your 100 miler that you did, do you recall what fueling was like back then compared to a 200
Oh,
miler now?
it was just like, to be honest, like I remember the power bars.
Oh,
There was
yeah.
a power bar that was, and I was racing like in the cold and that got
Mm.
frozen and you were like, oh,
Yeah.
trying to eat that.
Gonna break
So
your teeth.
that was one thing. Then they had some chews and things that
Mhm.
were like something that we took as more of like race nutrition. But then the
Mhm.
rest, it was like mostly like crackers and
Mhm.
chocolate and whatever
Yeah.
snack that I could
Mhm.
have. And I had like a lot of things, like variety. But
Nice.
as I said, I ended up like, I remember not eating much
Yeah.
throughout the race because I
Wow.
didn't know how to handle that either. It was
Yeah.
different to adventure racing because the pace is different and you're in the same activity. Like when you're in the kayak, it's very easy to eat
Right.
because you're sitting, right? You're not
Yeah.
bouncing and there's no impact, and it
Yeah.
becomes a huge challenge when you're running. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. So have you dealt with any GI issues during racing?
I did, like I had big issues
Mhm.
before, and when I started doing ultras, I had that too. I remember one year, and that was like something that came over and over again. And there was one year in Lavaredo. I don't know if you
Mm.
you know that race in Italy and the Dolomites.
Mhm.
That my it was like I had so much pain in my stomach, and it was
Oh.
like that I couldn't run downhill because I couldn't handle the impact. And
Yeah.
that was like something. It was as if I couldn't eat anything,
Wow.
and I was like in pain.
Oh.
Well, especially going downhill.
Yeah.
And I had that other times not being able to eat. That has
Mhm.
happened so many times. But then and that's like it's gonna it's gonna look like marketing, but I swear it's not. When I started taking Tailwind, which is
Oh,
like
yeah.
my sponsor, because I
Mm.
paired with them because I truly believe
Yeah.
that this is amazing, right?
Mhm.
And actually, like, if I mention Tahoe, for example, it was a race that usually like 200 miles, I think it's a race that I can eat because the pace is different and I feel
Mhm.
eat solid and real food. But in Tahoe, I think it was because of my flight and everything. I was working here on Monday like crazy, doing
Yeah.
classes after classes. I left on Tuesday. The race was Friday. It
Wow.
was like 9 hour difference from here. All the flight. I was flying like a whole day. I
Oh my
got there
gosh.
broken and I was in altitude. Like I had, the lake is high and you have to go
Mhm.
higher. So for 100 kilometers, I couldn't eat at all. At all.
Mm.
And I packed food. I had my drop bags. I looked at everything and it was like, no. And the only thing I could have was Tailwind. And
Mm.
thankfully, I packed like Tailwind for my out and back because
Mhm.
Tao is like an out and back to
Mhm.
the start, and then it's an out and back in the other direction. So
Mm.
for this first stretch of 100 kilometers, I just drank.
Wow.
But because I feel like that Tailwind to me is something that, like, I go running. I went on this Sunday. I ran like 37K, and it was
Mhm.
all Tailwind. And
Nice.
when I finish, I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
Like I feel I'm full.
Yeah.
It's good because I feel
Yeah.
like way, I'm not starving. I ran with one of the athletes I coach. We finished and she was like, I'm starving. I need to
Oh,
eat. And I'm like, I'm not, I'm fine. And I think
yeah.
it was because of the so it has saved me so
Yeah.
many times. And that's
Oh,
why I stick to it, and yeah, I truly believe that it's a good, really, really good nutritional.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You found like the right combo that like sits well and absorbs well and has the right amount
Never
of salt for
anymore. I
you.
had like the pain I described, and
Mm,
I feel good, and I
yeah.
feel that it allows me to eat real food, which
Yeah.
is what I consider important if you're running
Mhm.
100 miles.
Yeah.
You need to eat food. Like,
Yes.
I don't
Yeah.
feel like, not me, maybe someone does it, but I don't think you can run 200 miles on gels.
Right.
I think you need to eat like a pizza or,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, you need noodles or
Fit it
you need
in.
something that is like solid. I don't know.
Yes. Yeah. So on that note, so it sounds like you utilize Tailwind as an additional source, but you're trying to get in real food when you
Yeah.
can as well. And
Yeah.
so what are your go-to real foods?
As I mentioned pizza because I
Yeah.
love pizza and I always think it's like a really good thing to eat.
Yeah.
But I feel like I can eat basically anything
Hmm.
because of the pace
Mm.
in the 200 miles. So what I try to do is like in the aid stations, because they have a menu. It's crazy,
Hmm.
right? You get there and it's like, what do you want to eat? And there's like,
Yeah.
oh, we have this breakfast burritos and and you can choose. This is amazing.
Yeah. Oh.
Pancakes.
Hmm.
So you can alternate between, like sometimes you just want something sweet.
Yeah.
But for me, most of the times it's not the case because
Yeah.
most of the things are sweet, right?
Right.
So they have a lot of options, but pizza is something that I'm always craving.
Hmm.
It's really good, but depending on how your mouth feels, uh,
Hmm.
and if the temperature, like if you're racing like Cocodona, getting into Crown King, which is like super hot, and you
Mm.
went through that like dry section, the sun is like burning.
Mm.
I remember getting there and getting a smoothie, and it
Mm.
felt like perfect because
Yeah.
fruit and it's so easy in your mouth, and
Yeah.
so that's what you want at that point. But then I don't know, in Moab I had like broth or
Yeah.
noodles because it was super cold, and then it's
Hmm.
like maybe a smoothie isn't what I want at this
Right.
point if I'm like if it's like midnight and I'm
Yeah.
freezing,
Yeah.
so I think it all depends on the temperature. um you need to know the things that that work well for you. As I said, like I know that,
Hmm.
like, I have always eaten pizza and it has always felt good, so I trust that, if I can have that. Uh,
Hmm.
but I really think that it's important to have real food and then snack in between the aid
Yeah.
station. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a crew that brings those things for you, or are you using the on-course aid station nutrition, or both?
Yeah, like, I rely because I've raced, like, Aravaipa is amazing, right? So
Hmm.
Cardona, I was, like, freaking out. I was like, "This can't be real." Each aid station has different food, and I think this is important because you need different food.
Yeah.
If I'm eating the same thing all the time, even pizza, which I say I love, I'm gonna get to a point where it's like I can't have pizza anymore because
Right.
I'm eating pizza on and on.
Yeah.
And I think they have the knowledge of that,
Hmm.
especially because they race as well, so they
Yeah.
know that this happens. So they have like so much variety. So I trust the organization like 100%. And
Hmm.
same thing in destination trails. Like
Hmm.
all the races, we had plenty of food, plenty of variety, a menu, things that were so I did have a crew, and and my crew had food for me, like, oh, if you need something different. And but I think it was mostly like before the race I was saying like we don't need to buy, and you don't need
Hmm.
to cook or anything because this is going to be available for us, and I
Yeah.
can eat that. So yeah, that's something really good.
That's great. Yeah, definitely convenient. So, snacking wise, between the aid
Yeah.
stations, what does that look like?
So then it's like, I always have like some kind of chocolate, like for example, Snickers, the
Oh,
little
nice. Yeah.
ones. or maybe M&Ms or something that, but if I'm racing in the desert, like, and it's really
Mhm.
hot, this is gonna
Yeah.
melt, so I need to think of another thing. But for example, blocks, you know, cliff
Mhm.
blocks, I can
Yeah.
take that. um I take, sometimes I take nuts, but
Mhm.
it's, for me it's more difficult to eat nuts because
Yeah.
my mouth, when it's dry, it's like difficult to swallow,
Mhm.
so it's like too much chewing.
Mhm.
But for example, I need things that are savory, so I
Mm.
take like pistachio. I found this, like, pistachios
Mhm.
inside the dates. So I get the
Oh.
dates that are very sweet, and
Yeah.
because they are too sweet, I put pistachios or peanuts inside,
Smart.
and that's like really good, like
Yeah.
really good energy. Then I love cheese.
Yeah.
So in the US, and we don't have this here. It was like,
Yeah.
you know, I was just in the supermarket like researching, and they have these chips with, which are like cheese,
Yeah.
and it's like a cracker, but it's
Yes.
very salty,
Yeah.
and it's like what I needed. So I try to always have something that has salt,
Yeah.
because sometimes I crave the salt. I need that,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
is
Wow.
more difficult to find than in the snacks, right?
Yeah.
When you real food, you have everything, but in
Mhm.
the snacks, I try to have that in the mix, and then candy, like, you
Yeah.
know, just gummy bears or whatever. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I think those are all really good examples. I haven't heard anybody say the cheese thing, the cheese crackers. That's a great
they're
idea.
so good. They're so
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Oh, genius.
Oh, there's one more thing, and I have to mention that because I remember saying this to my crew, to Ben. I was like, "You're gonna see that this is the only thing. When I finish the race, you won't see not even one, because I'm gonna eat them all." And it's like baby food,
Oh,
you know that, but it's not
yes.
baby food. It's like a chia thing, a chia
Yes.
mix, and it's
Yes.
called, I forgot
Is it
the
called
name.
Chia Mama?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's delicious. And every
Yes.
time I had that, it was like, "Oh, my treat," you know? I always had it in my bag, was like,
Yeah.
"Delicious."
Because they're
Yeah,
in like kind of like a fruit juice too, right? Like, is
yeah,
it mixed with like a
yeah,
pureed fruit
yeah,
or
yeah,
something?
exactly,
Yeah.
and the texture is just
Yeah.
perfect.
That's
Yeah,
great.
'cause that's
Yeah.
also important, yeah.
Did you ever read, I think it was the book Born to Run? Did you ever read that?
I have never read it, no.
Okay, I think it's the Born to Run book. There's one that talks about, I hope I don't mess this up. I think it's like a tribe called like the Tara
Mhm,
Umara
mhm.
tribe. And like
Yeah,
one of their main fuel sources, I think, was chia seeds. And they like
okay.
make a chia seed pudding and they would run
It's
to
so
like the
good.
next village. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it is a long time fueling source. That's amazing. Okay, so going into the Crown, what were you thinking initially was going to be the hardest part, and what was the actual hardest part?
The part that I thought that it was, like, the impossible part was the recovery in between.
Mm,
It's like,
mhm.
how do you recover? I need
Yeah,
to figure this out. So, um, I actually, like, my plan was like, "You're gonna race Tahoe, and then you're not gonna do anything.
mm,
You're gonna race Bigfoot, and you're not gonna do anything, and you're gonna race Moab." Because I thought, like, if I run, then I just need to recover and go to the
yeah,
next race. It wasn't exactly like that, because I work, like, all the classes, like, the studio that I
yeah,
have, it's me.
mhm,
I don't have
mm,
anybody working with me. So if
yeah,
I'm doing, like, 5 classes of yoga a week, I do
mm,
them. And then
wow,
all the strength and all the mobility and all everything. So
yeah,
I'm not training, I'm doing a lot.
right,
And that was a big part of my training. But I wanted to, like, be very conservative on the running. And if I tell
mhm,
you what I ran between races, it was like ridiculous. People were running what I ran in a week, they ran in a day.
wow,
I wasn't running at all. It was like, to
yeah,
tell you, from Bigfoot to Moab, my longest run was a 20K.
wow,
That's it.
yeah,
And I was running like 10K 3
yeah,
times a week.
wow, okay,
Yeah. So I thought that was like the impossible part. And I
mhm,
think that, I'm not saying it's an absolute truth. It worked for me,
right,
which was focusing on doing less and
mhm,
just recovering and taking care of myself, my
Yeah.
body, sleeping, and I think I did it well.
Yeah.
But for me, the hardest part that I didn't consider was the traveling back and forth.
Yeah.
It was insane. It's like
Yeah.
I was working on Monday and doing class after class while like everyone who was racing was already there, in
Right.
the time zone at the altitude. And I was like here and I
Yeah.
had to fly and I had to get used to 9 hours change.
Right.
Yeah. And then to be honest, like I went for a run the day before and I was broken. It was like
Mm.
I was broken and I was like, I don't know how I'm gonna do this.
Mm.
And I raced. I had one day. I got a flight. I got here at noon. And in the afternoon, I was doing strength classes.
Oh
I
my
was,
gosh.
yeah. So
Wow.
didn't like, I don't have the luxury of having time. I don't.
Yeah.
And that was so hard. It was like,
Yeah.
it's unbelievable. And to be honest, like what I think was the greatest part of my achievement is like,
Yeah.
how did I do this with the life that I have,
Yeah.
living where I live, and considering like everything I had to do, and so many things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
My luggage not getting there,
Yeah.
or whatever, anything.
Yeah.
I'm working, and I'm not sitting in a computer. I'm doing
Mhm.
classes, and then I can feel like a pain in my back, and then I
Oh.
run.
Yeah.
Anything could happen. So I feel that I was so lucky that things
Mhm.
worked out, and I think that I did an incredible job in just juggling, my work with
Wow.
traveling, being
Yeah.
able to get there, being able to race, and being able to come back in time to
Yeah.
work. Yeah.
Gosh. Wow. Yeah. I mean, the yoga and mobility stuff, I feel like that was probably really beneficial
Yeah.
movement for the body to yeah, to move things along. Did you feel really sore at all following
I,
any of them?
I like Moab was definitely the race that like took the most out of me.
Mm,
And I think it was for two reasons. One, it was the longest one. Actually, it was the last one, the longest one.
yeah.
But also I feel that it was like when I crossed the line, it was over.
Mm,
And mentally and physically I knew that. And I
mhm.
think my body just said
Yeah.
and whereas like in Tahoe, I finished and it was like, come on, keep
Mm,
going.
yeah.
Same in Bigfoot. You finish like, come on, you still have
Yeah.
more. But then Moab, it's like it's over. You
Yeah.
can't stop. And it was so funny because I came to the class and I was like, you forgive me if I forget the sequence in the middle of the class or if I say something because I'm like, you know, I'm
Mhm.
here but I'm not here. And my students were like, don't worry, we will forgive you. And
Aw.
and and I just felt like, and they were like, how are you and how do you feel? I was like, I'm tired.
Mhm.
And it was so funny because they were laughing. I was like, no, I mean tired.
Yeah.
General fatigue. Like
Yeah.
my body is like tired.
Yeah.
And it was a different tired. It was like I need some time. Yeah.
Yeah. How long did it take after Moab for you to feel, and if you don't feel recovered yet, you can say that too, but
I do.
just okay. How long
Uh,
did it take to feel
yeah, it took longer because the other races,
mhm.
it took a week, and then I was running again, and I
Mm,
was in the mountains, and I was
yeah.
like, but after Moab, I said I want like a month of
Mhm.
not doing anything except my work.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna get the bike. I'm not gonna run. I'm not
Mhm.
gonna hike. I'm just gonna work. So I
Yeah.
did yoga. I did mobility. I did
Mhm.
strength.
Nice.
And yoga is the activity that I say it's like as if 2 days have gone by
Mm,
because the recovery after a class, I feel so much more. You speed up recovery, create in a crazy way,
yeah.
and that was so beneficial for me because I was doing classes, and I do the classes with them, so that because I
Mhm.
always have like new students in the class, and I cannot just say because they don't know the poses, so I
Right.
always do the class, and as I see them, I correct them, I speak, and because I was doing the classes, I just felt that my muscles were really happy with that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
great. Yeah.
physically, it was really good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mentally, it takes longer because it's just
Mhm.
like, if I have to think, it's like, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it will take so much energy to just think.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
when that is over, it's like, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Goodness. That's a lot of, I mean, yeah, volume and training and stress on the body and like you're saying, the travel and the time zone differences and
Yeah.
all of that. And just probably all the mental thought that went into like the planning and everything. I'm sure is just, yeah, it's a lot on the body physically
Mm,
and mentally. I would imagine too with like yoga, you're getting a lot of like activation of the parasympathetic, like the
yeah.
like rest and digest. So you're like helping,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
de-stress a little bit.
Exactly. It's not I always feel like most of the people who come to my classes, they're doing yoga like they're doing a gym
Hmm.
workout because what they're looking for is just like the physical benefits of it. But I
Mm-hmm.
always say like I don't want to impose anything on anybody. Is like I'm very connected to the spiritual part of yoga,
Mm.
but I never said anything that I don't want to make this you feel uncomfortable about
Yeah.
something that maybe
Mm.
you don't want to connect with.
Right.
But I'm connected with that, and I feel like it's been beneficial for me not only in my recovery, but in leading into a race. Like when I have so many things happening in my day and think that when I leave, I need to leave everything very organized.
Mm.
And I coach people online, so I need to prepare their workouts in advance, and I need to communicate. Like I'm not gonna be able to answer a
Hmm.
message. So everything has to be done, and I don't have like a lot of time. I'm doing something all the time because I'm super busy.
Yeah.
But in my head, I don't get stressed just
Mm.
because I have. So I set my goals. Well, let's say I have a week until I travel. I set my goals so that every day I have a list of things to do, but
Mm.
I am able to focus on what on the list I have that day
Hmm.
and what I have first, and not think of what's last in the
Yeah.
list, and start getting anxiety because of that. Because
Yeah.
like, oh, it's too many things. It's overwhelming. No, stop. Do this.
Yeah.
Check. Do that. And so everything that I had down the week, I didn't because if I brought my thought to that future, I would go crazy and I would
Yeah.
go nuts, and I would this would be very bad for me because it would be like a waste of energy. And
Yes.
then that translated into the race is really good because
Mhm.
I don't think about aid station uh in 150 miles.
Right.
I think about where I am in that moment.
Mhm.
And in Moab, that I felt horrible in the beginning of the
Mm.
race because I dehydrated a lot, and I got to the first aid station and I was done.
Mm.
I was like, Ben said, "What do you need?" And I'm like, "I need a reset."
Mm.
"What do you mean?" "I need to change clothes and I'm going to start the race again."
Mm.
So that was my thought. It's like,
Yeah.
there's plenty of time for me to
Yeah.
recover. And that's what I need now. It's like, "What do you
Yeah.
need?" And I said, "I need to recover and I'm going to work on that." So I changed clothes. That was the first thing. I was like, start again. Change your socks, change
Mhm.
your shirt, and think that you're starting the race now and just leave and fix what you did. You know?
That's amazing.
That's really good because it's something like I think I I got this with time
Yeah.
and with the yoga because yoga
Yeah.
brought this to my life, like being present.
Yes.
Doing a class, if I'm thinking about that I have to do something, I'm gonna get lost in the middle of the class. So I'm
Mhm.
super focused. Like when I do things, I'm 100% there.
Yeah.
And I think
That's
this is
great.
that's the part that we miss in the
Yes.
world we live today. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm smiling because it makes it makes me think of me a little bit. I'm like that with like Do you, when you say list, because like I use a software to keep track of like my to-dos and my lists, but do you have an app or are you just in your phone with like a checklist or you have a calendar? How do you operate with your lists?
Yeah, so I because I work as a coach, so I
Hmm.
work with an app that is named Final Surge,
Oh
which is
yeah.
like
Hmm.
Training Peaks, and
Yep.
so I use it as my agenda
Nice. Yeah.
because I look at it every day because I'm
Hmm.
coaching people and I have to open it every day.
Yes.
And if I had that somewhere else, maybe I wouldn't see that. And I
Yep.
receive an email when I have, because when I write
Oh.
that down, there's an email that arrives to me every day with, "This is your workout." But I use it
Oh.
as an agenda. So
Oh,
if I have
that's
an
smart.
appointment with you, that came up for me today in
Yeah.
my mail as like at 9 p.m. you have a podcast,
Wow.
So that's really good. And actually, like, I think about my time
Hmm.
and how I can manage my time to get through the week, like in a healthy way, because I have a million things to do. Is like, how are you gonna? And I just spread this in a way. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, I went through Monday and I was able to do this and that and that and that. But I have no, don't worry. This is Sunday.
Yeah.
Now go to Tuesday. And this is how I go. Like I go
I
step
love
by
it.
yeah.
I love it. I think, yeah, my brain is very similar to yours and what you're explaining. So I definitely appreciate that and understand that for sure. I like the final surge idea. I know like a lot of the athletes I work with too, they will like, yeah, kind of their life lives in
Uh-huh.
their training peaks or their final surge. It's certainly helpful from a viewing lens too. But yeah, I can see that how that's a useful tool there. Okay, we you mentioned the dehydration at Moab. We didn't talk about hydration or well, we talked about tailwind. Obviously, that's the way we can get fluids in. But
Mhm.
do you have a specific like fluid goal you're trying to get? Are you going more by thirst? How do you think about that when you're racing? Hey everyone, when's the last time you actually looked under the hood with comprehensive blood work? Most of you are training 10, 15, 20 hours a week, but have no idea if your body has what it needs to perform. Here's what we see constantly: low ferritin tanking your aerobic capacity, vitamin D deficiency that's increasing your injury risk or keeping you sick, elevated cortisol from overtraining, thyroid markers that are normal but not optimal for an athlete. So that's why we created our full athlete blood panel. We test everything: complete metabolic panel, advanced lipids, iron stores, vitamin D, B12, folate, magnesium, testosterone, cortisol, thyroid, insulin, hemoglobin. You name it, it's over 20 markers that directly impact your performance and your recovery as an athlete. It's $371 and includes the lab fee through Quest, and you can get tested as soon as tomorrow morning. Check the show notes for the link to order. Some state restrictions do apply, but it's available in most of the US. Stop guessing and get the data.
Yeah, that's the part that I have to be really careful about because I'm like I sweat a lot. And it's incredible. Like if I go for an hour run, I can lose like 2 liters of water in an
Wow.
hour easy run. This can happen, which is
Yeah.
like insane because I have a nutritionist here and she's like, "This is crazy, you know?
Yeah.
You need to hydrate a lot and you
Yeah.
need to be careful with the salt and everything." So the thing like with the sodium is good because Tailwind has plenty.
Hmm.
And I feel that that is covered because I'm not taking like salt sticks or
Hmm.
anything extra.
Right.
And I just have to be careful not to have too much salt because
Hmm.
or else I'm like, you know,
Right.
um, and so I always have Tailwind
Hmm.
in one of the flasks, and then I have water in another one. And because I sweat a lot, it's something that I'm constantly like I know that I need to drink because I
Hmm.
feel thirsty.
Yeah.
But probably I think that I should drink more than I drink
Mm.
because I sweat more than I think I do. And
Hmm.
sometimes I see that like on
Oh, the
my
salt.
yeah, so it's
Yeah.
like I could see the salt and even in my face. Like I do
Yes.
this and it's all salt. It's like,
Yes.
okay, this is yeah, and then you have some other like start cramping or something is
Mm.
okay. You're something is happening. Be careful.
Yeah.
Which is
Wow.
something that I need to be careful now in the winter
Yeah.
because I don't feel that thirsty. But I
Right.
still sweat a lot. Like I
Hmm.
go for a run and it's like, oh my God, it's
Yeah.
cold and I'm sweating like that, but I don't feel thirsty in the
Yeah.
so I need to be really careful and hydrate during the run as well. So take a
Mhm.
belt, or have resources, because sometimes you're just like lazy about carrying a pack, and you just,
Mhm.
oh, it's just an hour, you don't
Yeah.
need that. And you do.
Yeah.
Like a person
Yeah.
like me, I do.
Yes. Yeah. That's a great point. I was just at a conference and the researcher was like presenting and saying that the athletes that came in the most dehydrated were in the cold environment, not the hot environment.
Yeah,
And
because you don't drink.
yeah,
Yep.
yeah. So it certainly is important. So are you trying to do like both flasks through an hour, or again, it sounds like maybe a little bit to thirst and temperature
Yeah,
too, maybe?
yeah, like I would love to do 2 flasks an hour, but I don't.
Yeah.
So my goal is like at least if I'm not eating, like I should have a flask, because that's like
Mhm.
an hour.
Yeah.
If I'm having tailwind, is like a flask an hour. You need the
Yeah.
flask an hour, because if you're not having calories from anywhere else, you
Hmm.
need to have that flask. But as I said, like I went on this run on Sunday. It was like 3 hours 50, more or
Hmm.
less. And I should have 4 flasks when I
Mm.
had, and the
Oh,
third I had like in the end.
yeah.
Because in the beginning, I'm not thirsty and I can go a long time without anything,
Hmm.
or just like sipping very little. And then I start getting a lot more thirsty as
Mm.
I progress. So
Yeah.
towards the end of the run, I think because I have already accumulated too much time not drinking enough. And then
Right.
it's my body like, come on, which is the
Yeah.
mistake in the race.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's like I'm not drinking too much, and suddenly I'm super thirsty, and I
Right.
drink like this much, and my belly is like that, and I can't move
Yeah.
because I'm doing too much at once. Whereas
Right.
if I'm just sipping, that's the part that I feel that I need to improve. Sip more often
Mm.
and not wait until be thirsty, and just,
Right.
yeah,
Small frequent sips.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. So talking about the recovery component between the races and just day-to-day nutrition, did you have any sort of like rebound hunger in the days or even like week following these races? And were you prioritizing certain foods or more listening to like appetite and specific like cravings? How did you navigate those weeks following the races initially with your diet?
Yeah, so I don't like to eat like bad food because
Hmm.
I feel bad. Not
Yeah.
not because it's just I feel bad. Like,
Yep.
if I'm eating poorly, it's like I don't feel good about myself.
Hmm.
But I allow myself to do that after the race, because I feel it's like just give your body what it needs right now.
Yeah.
I feel it's like it's more important to get any type of food in than not
Hmm.
eating. So if I'm like I say, okay, if I feel like eating chocolate, all day, just eat. It's like you finished the race yesterday. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter. Just eat.
Right.
And it's true that right after the race, I feel maybe like I sleep and I wake up in the middle of the night because I'm starving,
Yeah.
because my body, I think, is still just like processing all of that, and
Yeah.
then you eat, and then it's like it's gone and you need to eat again.
Yeah.
But I feel that like I feel good when I eat good food.
Yeah.
And then, like, I'm talking like I love to eat like vegetables
Hmm.
and fruit, like green colored,
Yeah.
I feel like my dish has to have a lot of colors.
Yeah.
I like to cook, which is good. Like,
Hmm.
the only thing is that when I don't have time, then I need to adapt.
Yep.
But if I could, I would just make my own food every day, because that's, for me, is the best.
Yeah.
And I
Wow.
try to focus on that, because I know that my recovery is gonna be better if I eat better. So I'm
Hmm.
not, just gonna eat junk food and expect my body to feel great, because it's
Right.
not. So
Yeah.
I try to, yeah, for example, beetroot is
Mhm.
something that I really like, and I know that it's really good for recovery. So you can
Yeah.
either, just make a smoothie, or just add that into your salad every day, and just
Yeah.
prioritize, I don't know, ginger or whatever
Hmm.
things that that are good or
Yeah.
anti-inflammatory. Add that to your food, so that you get like the natural
Hmm.
way, and not having to take anything for that. And your
Right.
body's completely, it's like you're swollen. I feel like
Yeah.
after the race, it takes me like 3 days and I'm just gaining weight because of all the fluids, and
Yeah.
then suddenly I shrink. It's like,
Yeah.
it's like, and then I'm very skinny suddenly, and
Yeah.
then you start recovering your weight again,
Mm.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah,
Yeah.
especially with flying. It's like I get here and I'm like,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
I bet. Yeah, all the salt and like tissue inflammation and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of antioxidants, like
yeah.
polyphenol rich, like which is obviously really great for tissue recovery and healing. So love that. Okay. Well, I want to be mindful of your time. So I'm gonna go through some rapid fire questions, then we're gonna get your two truths and a lie real quick. So this might dive into a little bit of what we were just talking about, but what is your best post-race meal?
Okay, I'm not gonna say pizza. It could be, but
Yeah.
one of the things I really, really like, and I save it for the end of the race, is Thai food because I really like
Ooh.
spicy food, and I don't
Yes.
want to eat that before the race because I'm like, okay, maybe it's not ideal,
Yeah.
but after the race, that's like if I find a Thai restaurant, I definitely go for Thai.
Yum. Amazing. Okay. What's the never again fuel mistake you learned the hard way?
Ah, never again is like probably the bars, and I'm
Yeah.
talking about most of the bars. It's like
Yeah.
I take that thinking that I'm gonna eat them, and when I eat them, it's like, how can somebody eat that? That's
Yeah.
horrible. Yeah,
Like
no
a
bars.
cardboard brick. Yeah. Okay. What's the one thing you always pack that most runners forget?
I'd say chewing gum.
Oh,
Yeah, because in 200 miles,
yeah.
your mouth gets really weird, and I
Mm,
think the chewing gum is like kind of like brushing your teeth, you
yeah.
know? And you feel fresh and it's like
Yeah.
you feel clean because that's one thing that you hope for. It's like I
Yeah.
want to feel clean, because I haven't been showering or I feel
Yeah.
like horrible. I brush my teeth once a day and it's like
Yeah.
chewing gum, it gives you like the fresh thing.
So you
Yeah.
do like a minty or like
Yeah.
menthol, yeah, like a palate refresh almost. That's a great
Yeah.
idea. And then what's your favorite aid station food of all time?
Pizza. Then I
Pizza.
have to say
I shouldn't have even had to ask.
yeah. Easier,
That's
easier.
great. Okay, so for your two truths and lie, you said that you ran your first marathon when you were 19. You won the lottery on April Fool's Day, and that you are a vegan. I was thinking the marathon at 19 was the lie. Is that correct?
It's a lie.
Oh, wait. Oh, so I got it right.
Yeah.
Oh, yay!
But did I have to say 2 truths and 1 lie?
Yeah.
There's another lie. So
Oh,
guess
there's
what
another lie.
is that?
Okay, so it's one truth, two lies. Okay, so the other lie is that you're not
Ah,
vegan?
now I got you.
Is it a vegan? Are you not a vegan?
Are you answering or are you asking?
Yes. I'm asking. I'm asking. Yeah. I feel
You
like you
think
might be a vegan though after what we were talking about, but are you a vegan?
I'm not.
You're not.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm vegetarian.
Okay.
Yeah,
So, okay, so those were the two lies. So you didn't run a marathon when you were 19 and you were not vegan, but you did win the lottery on April Fool's Day.
I did.
Wow. That's gotta be
It's
twist,
like,
like give you a brain, make
I
your
think
brain
nobody
think.
knows that, so you're the
Yeah.
first.
That's great. I love it. Okay, well, where can our listeners find you, follow you, all that stuff?
Yeah, so on Instagram,
Mm,
my Instagram account is Manu Vilaseca.
mhm.
And then I work as a coach for
Mm,
Peak Run Performance. So
awesome.
that's also like an Instagram account or website
Perfect.
that people
Mhm.
can find me. Yeah, but usually on Instagram I will always reply and yeah.
Perfect. We will
Yeah.
link both of those for the listeners. Do you do yoga virtually as well? Do you coach that virtually?
That's something I'm thinking about because
Yeah.
I coach one of the athletes I coached. Like the other day, we had a little bit of a workshop online. It was like,
Yeah.
oh, this was so good. And I was like, maybe this format could work,
Yeah.
especially because it gives me, a freedom of
Mhm.
being able to travel and not being like present in
Right.
the gym here.
Yeah.
It's something I'm thinking about, so it could be, yeah, a
Could be in the
possibility.
future. All right. Well, follow her Instagram and find it there. Well, thank you again so much for joining us,
Thank
Mina. This has
you.
been so great.
Thank you so much, and it's my pleasure.
To stay up to date with the Nutritional Revolution recent activities, follow Nutritional Revolution on Instagram and Facebook, and sign up to receive the Nutritional Revolution newsletters on the Nutritional Revolution website. If you guys enjoyed today's content, please hit subscribe below to stay up to date on the latest Nutritional Revolution posts. Have a healthy day.